Hello and welcome to the Football Word. This is Doug Kide. This is Zach Cox. We are here with episode 2, and the NFL Scouting Combine starts this week. So let's start off by looking at some offensive positions that the Patriots could be looking at in the Combine this year, talking to some players, checking out some workouts. So what to you is the number one offensive priority for the Patriots in the NFL Draft?
Well, I don't think we're going to get a clear answer to that question until we see how they proceed with the almost 24 free agents that they have. Depending on what they do in free agency, it could really shape how they approach the draft. But going into this combine, I have to say that their number one priority on offense has to be tight end. It's really looking unlikely that Martellus Bennett will be back next season. Obviously, there's still a chance. There's still free agency doesn't even open for another week. But all the reports we're hearing that he's going to command a big deal and he'll probably end up elsewhere. So with Rob Gronkowski's injury history and the fact that there's really nobody below him on the depth chart right now except for Rob Hausler, who they scooped up as a futures signing late in the year, I think they're gonna take a good look at the tight ends in this draft because it is a very deep draft from everything we're hearing. You've got guys like David Njoku. I know we messed up his name a little bit last episode. We got you now, David. Yep. David Njoku. And David Njoku from Miami and Alabama's O.J. Howard are the two. They seem like the cream of the crop this year. But even if you go down a little bit further on that list, you can get guys like Jake Butt, guys like Jordan Leggett. There's a pretty solid second tier group in there. And from everything we're hearing, that this is one of the deeper tight end classes we've seen in quite a while.
Certainly, I really can't argue with you that tight end is certainly a priority in the draft for the Patriots. I would put running back right up there with it, especially that big back, that LeGarrette Blount type. Blount is getting up there in years. He really tailed off at the second half of the season, didn't have a huge impact in the playoffs. So I think that's a position that they certainly should be looking at. I thought they would look at it last year. Then they brought back Blount. They had Dion Lewis, James White. Those guys can't be that bell cow running back that a guy like LeGarrette Blount can. So it's another pretty strong draft for running backs this year. LSU's Leonard Fournette. He'll probably be gone by the time the Patriots are picking. You're also looking at Oklahoma's Samaje Perine, Texas's Deontay Foreman, Wisconsin's Corey Clement. Another guy, though, is Oklahoma's Joe Mixon. He fits in a size perspective, but Patriots have really liked to stay away from the domestic violence type guys. And with everything that's kind of going on about him, I'm not sure if they would actually take a look at him. But from a size perspective, he is the right fit.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how teams view Mixon during this pre-draft process, because he obviously has some of the worst off-field baggage you can have as a draft prospect. But I don't know if teams will look at how Tyreek Hill, who had a similar kind of similar baggage going into the NFL draft. He had a huge year for the Chiefs. I don't know if teams are going to look at him and maybe not discount Mixon as much as they might in other years. Another name that has been linked to the Patriots a lot has been Christian McCaffrey from Stanford. Yes. Everybody says he's the perfect Patriots type player, and he kind of is. But with the fact that they already have Dion Lewis, they already have James White, having three players who basically do the same thing, I think would be a little redundant. So I think if they're going to go running back high up in the draft, they go for one of those bigger power backs. Yeah,
I think that you're looking at McCaffrey, or a lot of guys are looking at McCaffrey because he's coming from Stanford. Basically, I mean, for lack of a better term, what he looks like, basically. Yep. But no, I mean, they've also got DJ Foster. They've got a lot of those smaller backs that I'm not sure if they would waste that high of a pick on a guy with players that they already have similar to on the roster. I said that very poorly, but you understood what I meant. You guys understood what I meant. Let's move on before I speak incorrectly again. Let's look at some released players that the Patriots could be interested in. Patriots really like those conditional draft picks. This year they got a 5th rounder, they got the 3rd rounder from the Browns, and they get those by not signing high-profile free agents, unrestricted free agents. They do sign released players pretty often. Chris Long was one last year that they signed, and it's because those guys don't play into the conditional pick formula. So there have been some interesting names that have already been released. 2 of those guys are Jared Odrick and Elteron Werner. I think that both of those guys could certainly fit what the Patriots are looking for in a defensive lineman and in a cornerback. I kind of got into it with a Twitter follower last night.
I was going to bring this up.
Very lengthy discussion about Jared Odrick, and quite frankly, I was bored during the Oscars, so I let it carry on probably much further than I usually would have. The guy was arguing essentially that the Patriots would not look at Jared Odrick because he doesn't love football, because he believes in football counterculture. And I basically said, if they traded for Martellus Bennett, then I'm not sure if they would say, no, we can't get a guy like Jared Odrick in here. So I think that Odrick is actually, he would be a great fit for the Patriots on the defensive line, playing both defensive tackle and defensive end. Whether or not he loves football, I can't say that for certain. I mean, the guy's been pretty good throughout his career, so I think that they'd take a look at him if the price is right.
Yeah, he had a very disappointing end down in Jacksonville. But I believe he only played in 6 games this past year, only had 1 sack, really wasn't very productive for the Jaguars. But he has talent, as we've seen in the past. If he can stay healthy, and if these reports of minor friction in the locker room that it caused is actually a minor concern and not a more serious one, then I think they could definitely take a look at him.
Yeah, and Elteron Werner is another interesting name. Didn't exactly pan out the way that the Buccaneers probably hoped he would. I think he only started 9 games over the last 2 seasons, somewhere around there. But I mean, if the Patriots are looking for a third cornerback, I think that he's a guy that certainly would help the team. He could be that nickel guy, that slot guy behind Malcolm Butler and Eric Rowe if they can't bring back Logan Ryan. So that's certainly another name that would be interesting.
Yeah, they're going to have to do something, I think, at the cornerback position this offseason, because I really can't see them bringing back both Malcolm Butler and Logan Ryan. And with the kind of checkered history they've had with cornerbacks in the draft, I don't know if they would want to trust those 3, 4, 5 spots to young first and second year draftees. I mean, especially after if you look at what Cyrus Jones did last year, or did not do, I should say. I mean, there's obviously he's obviously going to get another chance this year, but I don't know if they'd want to bring some veteran stability into that group.
Thought something was interesting, actually, just staying with cornerbacks for a second. On RotoWorld's top 100 free agent list, Evan Silva puts it together. He had Logan Ryan ahead of Dante Hightower on his list.
Really?
Which I might be Logan Ryan's biggest defender, supporter, and I'm not coming up with many ways that I could possibly say that Logan Ryan is a better free agent than Dante Hightower. I guess it will be interesting to see how much they each make, but I can't see Logan Ryan commanding a bigger salary than Hightower either, and traditionally cornerbacks do get paid more than linebackers.
Yeah, I mean, I like Logan Ryan as a player. I think he's going to be a very good player for whatever team he ends up with, whether it's back in New England or somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, that sounds kind of crazy to me. I know we both think that Dante Hightower is the Patriots' most important free agent, and I think that's kind of a widely held opinion. I've seen a lot of people rank him 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 1 around the league of top free agents. So yeah, I think that might be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I thought so. Let's get into some current events real quick. Last night on the Oscars, obviously, the wrong movie was called as far as Best Picture goes. They announced La La Land, wound up being Moonlight. This has actually kind of happened in the NFL before. 1982 NFL Draft. The Buccaneers were choosing between two players, guard Sean Farrell and defensive end Booker Reese. They called to their representative at the combine, said, we don't want to take Farrell, we do want to take Reese. He only heard the first part of it, turned in the name Sean Farrell. The Buccaneers then tried to rescind the pick, which the NFL would not allow them to do. And then they actually wound up trading back up into the top half of the second round, taking Reese anyway. And Reese wound up being a huge bust for the Buccaneers. Farrell was fine. But yeah, I guess it's not exactly the same. That was really their mistake rather than the NFL's mistake. But a wrong name has been called during the NFL draft. If the Patriots could use this excuse for any player that they've taken during the Bill Belichick era, who would you say that Bill Belichick would most likely want to say, no, that was the wrong pick. That's not who we meant to take in that draft?
Can I say pretty much every defensive back they've drafted in the second round?
That's fair.
I mean, going back to the
very fair.
I went back through the Pro Football References earlier. Mm-hmm. These are all of the second round defensive backs drafted under Bill Belichick. Cyrus Jones, Jordan Richards, Tavon Wilson, Razai Dowling, Patrick Chung, hit that one. Darius Butler went on to be decent in Indy, but bust for the Pats. Terrence Wheatley, bust. Eugene Wilson, good player. That's they're basically betting like 75 there. That's well below the Mendoza line. So I think they would. Obviously Razai Dowling I think is probably the biggest of that group.
I would say
so. But second round defensive backs for whatever reason. Third round he usually does pretty well. Yeah. Second round they can't get a handle on it.
Even Patrick Chung on there too. I mean, he's a good player now, but that first tenure there, he was probably considered a bust based on what he had done up to that point. So I think that's very fair.
Yeah, who would you have here?
I was thinking Tavon Wilson off the top of my head, but just
the fact that he's still playing now, though.
Right. I might even say it's tough. You could say any wide receiver they've drafted in the first 3 rounds over the last couple of years. Maybe I'd go with Dominique Easley. I know that he was a popular player at the time, but that's got to be Bill Belichick's biggest first-round bust since he came here. I mean, the guy was released after 2 seasons.
It's really hard to call that any sort of a success when your first-round pick is out of there 2 years later. Even though he showed some flashes with the Pats, but if you can't stick around the team that drafted you in the first round for more than 2 years,
I still might go with Wilson, though, just because that was such an unexpected pick at the time. He was considered a 7th rounder by most people, and then, to take him in the 2nd round, that did not go so well for them. Moving over to Tom Brady, Seattle Seahawks cornerback. Speaking of cornerbacks, there's a segue I'll try to use. Richard Seymour on Instagram posted all of the Richard Sherman, I should say.
Speaking of Patriots draft picks.
Yes, speaking of draft picks, not Seymour, Sherman. Posted all of the game-worn jerseys that he has been gifted by other players, and Tom Brady was in that pile. Somewhat surprisingly, I guess I'd say, because they did have that beef in 2012. And Tom Brady actually had a message for Sherman on the jersey saying, "You are the best," which, I mean, I'd kind of have a hard time arguing with Brady's statement on that. I think that Sherman might be widely considered, the best cornerback in the NFL right now. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you're not going to find many people who will vehemently disagree with that statement. And I know that Brady and Sherman had their beef back to the "You Mad Bro" game a couple years ago. But even once they played in the Super Bowl, I mean, there's that famous picture of Tom Brady taking the final knee and Sherman walking over trying to shake his hand. Obviously, Tom Brady eventually stood up and shook their hand. There's a mutual respect there. But it does go to show that, I mean, Richard Sherman talks a lot of smack, but he definitely has respect for Tom Brady and vice versa. And
the rest of that message it says, "I'm still," and then it's kind of blocked off by another jersey, and then it says, "You are the best." So I don't know what that I'm still mad that you intercepted me. I'm still mad, bro. I don't know what the rest of that message is. We'll probably never know, but
"I'm still mad, bro" would actually be a pretty good.
That would be a good message to write on the jersey there. I don't know. I'm lost beyond that. Coming up also this week is the deadline for the Patriots to use their either franchise or transition tag. We'll go through this real quick just because there's really only 2 possibilities for the Patriots to use this tag on. It's either Martellus Bennett or Dante Hightower. Dante Hightower is the much more likely person for the Patriots to slap that tag on. And it sounds like they wouldn't be willing to use the franchise tag on him, but perhaps the transition tag. The difference between that is about $2.5 million, a little more than that. Basically, do you think they use this? Do you think they use the tag before Wednesday's deadline at 4 p.m.?
I guess I wouldn't be surprised, just because we've heard, basically even going back into the season, that this was almost the most likely route if they were going to get Dante Hightower back. It doesn't sound. He said that he doesn't want to take any sort of hometown discount, anything like that, and he's going to command a big salary. So this might be their best avenue to doing so. Obviously, we spoke about the franchise tag and the transition tag on the our last episode. Slightly different. I don't think a lot of people really know about the transition tag. Yeah. It's cheaper for the team, but it is more risky because they won't get any compensation if another team signs them away. But and as for Bennett, I don't know. I haven't really heard much rumbling about that. I guess it's obviously a possibility, but I mean, I'm just having a really hard time envisioning Martellus Bennett being back here next season, personally. How do you feel about this?
I think they, it's probably safer to assume they won't use it. Mm-hmm. It is interesting. The Patriots have used a tag 9 times during Bill Belichick's tenure here, but they've only used it once in the last 4 seasons. So at this point, the safer bet is to say that they don't use it, but I think that they should use it on Dante Hightower, and perhaps they should use that transition tag. There is some risk involved, like you said. If another team signs Hightower away, then they don't get any compensation. But by using that transition tag, it really takes away a lot of the bargaining power for Hightower because he can't really shop deals against other teams. He can't say, well, this team's offering this much. What are you guys going to offer me? Basically, teams just have to give an offer, and then that's that. So if I were the Patriots, I would definitely use that transition tag. It's going to be right around $12 million, a little bit more for 1 season. And then even if they do slap that transition tag, they could still try to work out a deal with Hightower. I don't think you can just let him walk as a free agent this offseason. Yeah, obviously, you would get that compensatory selection for him, but that's in 2 years. It's
going to be 5 years before that player could even potentially be as good as Dante Hightower.
Exactly. So I think you do it. I mean, I'm not sure if they actually do it or not, but I think that they should. I think you have to take every step you possibly can to get Hightower back here in 2017, basically whether he wants to or not. And that's really what the transition tag is. It doesn't make a player very happy, but at the same time, $12 million in 2017, can't complain too much about that. So that will certainly be interesting to see if they do that. We'll have those figures soon for the franchise tag and transition tag. We're still using the 2016 figures for now because those haven't been sorted out. And that's probably the final decision the Patriots have to make on that too, is just to see what those final figures are going to be. Yep. I'm sure that they have a pretty good idea of what they are, but just to get that finalized before they decide whether to use that on Hightower Bennett. Hightower's the more likely scenario there. But that will do it for us here for this week's or today's edition of the Football Word. We will be back with you on Thursday once we know whether the Patriots have used that tag or not.